Imagine spending your entire life saving only to lose it all to a nursing home or assisted living facility in months. If you are stuck in this Medicaid gap, meaning you have too much in assets and income to qualify for state aid, but not nearly enough to pay for a nursing home, $12,000 a month bill, you're not alone. In this video, we expose this Medicaid trap and show you exactly the moves you could take today to protect your home, your farm, your IRA, your legacy. Stick around, we'll show you how to avoid losing it all to the nursing home. I bring in my co-host, Tony. There he is. Tony, welcome to the show. We're talking about the long-term care situation and I'm going to call it the Medicaid Gap Trap. And it's going to be in Florida because that's where I am. But I have clients all over the place. You're in Minnesota, and where you specifically have gone through this, you're going through this. So you might be able to give a little bit of insight into what's going on. But before I let you get into that, I want to make two very specific caveats. One, neither Tony or I are lawyers. So this is not legal advice. We're going to give practical guidance and tips. And two, the Medicaid situation is based on your state. It's a state run. So what happens in Florida may be different than the rules and regulations in Minnesota. So if you're watching this and you're not in Florida, the concepts and the strategies are still applicable, but it just may be a little slightly different based on what state you live in. So Tony, you're going through this and I'm sure it's not fun.
It is the opposite of fun on the entire other end of the spectrum. And anybody who's had to deal with this for loved ones, it is really not good. My mom has been in full-time skilled nursing care, full-time long-term care for over 4 years now with late-stage Parkinson's, and just progressively gotten worse, needs help doing everything. And Medicaid was covering it because they kind of separated her from my dad. My dad, they didn't really have anything saved up. My mom and dad didn't have much for assets. So she went in, started getting long-term care. Well, that happened. My grandfather passed away and left my dad the farm and some farmland. So therein lies a problem. And my grandfather and my dad, I tried to get my grandfather to do it ahead of time. I tried to tell them, but you can't talk to my grandfather was part of the greatest generation, 100% English, really reserved when it comes to talking about personal things and money. So that didn't work out. And my dad, to them, I'm still that little boy, right? It's hard for them. Yeah. I'm like, I do this every day. I talk to Dan Wendol every day of the week, and he knows this stuff. And I talk to elder care attorneys, and oh no, I've got an estate planning attorney, some guy in Worthington, Minnesota, who didn't know what he was doing, right? And so none of that was protected from the state, and the state can go back. And there's a 5-year look back. And luckily, there are some stipulations for family farms, but it doesn't protect it. We probably, now that my dad is also in long-term care and needs full-time skilled nursing care, he also happened to get Parkinson's and is in there now too, and has been for a year, and assisted living before that. What's going to happen is we'll probably lose the family farm because of it. And I've done a lot of things to try to prevent it. But it was too late and too little done. I mean, my dad and my grandfather would have had to do something. Me coming in later doesn't necessarily help. But had I been more forceful, or they communicated about it better and worked with somebody like yourself, would have been a whole different story. But the state is dealing with Medicaid, and the state and the forms is not fun at all.
And you're falling now in that gap where you have assets that you don't want to lose, but it's too much to qualify for state aid.
Yeah.
Yet it's not so much in assets that the farm is spitting out, $15,000 a month to pay for your parents, right?
No.
So you're in that gap.
Yeah.
And you said it, you hit the nail on the head when you said this is something we should have done prior. But let's talk about what you do if you
Yeah.
get
Because my
slammed with it right now, because
Yeah,
there
my
are
dad is in the
solutions.
Gap. I tried to get him on Medicaid, but he can't qualify for Medicaid, but I'm like, he only has the income from it is only like he only with Social Security, he's only making like $20,000 a year max, and that's nowhere near enough to pay for full-time long-term care.
Let's talk about that. So, some very specific numbers in Florida. A single person can have $2,000 of assets to their name. That includes checking accounts, savings accounts, cash value of a life insurance policy, money under the pillow. They're looking, right? Um, and 2,982 a month of income. So, okay, a lot of people in this country have the average Social Security, which is less than 2,982 a month. So they're like, okay, I can qualify. I have less than 3 grand of income. Why don't I get the state to help me? The state then looks at your assets and says, do you have more than $2,000 to your name? Yes. Then you got to go to spend down. And I want to talk about what you do, because there are some things you can do.
Sure.
And if you're married, that asset level goes up to 162,000 roughly. Right now, all these numbers you're going to want to verify with your elder law attorney, and again, per state. But generally speaking, in Florida, this is what we're looking at.
Yeah.
And $2,000 is not a lot of money.
Yeah. And
Right?
there's a
Like,
5-year look back, right? In
there's
Florida
a
as
5-year
well.
look back. Yes.
Yeah.
So if you don't plan, then your nest egg will go to the nursing home. The family farm will go. Right. And I'm sorry, I'm sorry you're going through this. Really, truly. Um, it's tough. A lot of people in that zone want to give something to their kids, and but they don't want to give it to them when they're alive, right? Necessarily, they need it for themselves, so they hold on to it, and then they go into the nursing home, and then it's gone,
Yeah.
right? And then everyone's
And the
scrambling.
nursing home gets it. They might as well have 5 years ago given it to their kids, and then the 5-year look back wouldn't have taken effect. And so do you want your children or grandchildren to have it, or do you want the nursing home to have it? I'm not
Right.
saying I mean, that's kind of the way we looked at it, my wife and I, for my mother-in-law and for my own parents. It's like, we didn't it's not like we wanted them. It has nothing to do with me wanting the money. I want my parents to be happy, and it's their money. However, it doesn't make a lot of sense if you know, like, if you have early onset or there's a history of health issues and you're 85 and you've got all this money, do you want it to end up going to the long-term care facility, or would you like your grandkids to get it to pay off their student loans? And if there's enough time, if there's a 5-year gap, you can't give it to them and then they pay off their loans, and then next year you get Medicare. They're going to say, well, you had $700,000 and you spent it or gave it to your grandkids or paid off college loans. That doesn't count as spend down. That's actually, you had to have had that money. We don't care. You owe this money, right? Then
Right.
Medicaid
Right.
won't
And
cover it.
that's right. So the 5-year look back, for those that don't know, it's basically the Medicaid reviews your situation, and you could say, yeah, I have less than $2,000 to my name. My income is 2,000 a month. Oh, let me qualify. They say, well, you only have $2,000 to your name. Let's look at your statements for the past 5 years. Let's look at all the activity. Oh, you gave $100,000 to your daughter, and you gave 150 to your son 2 years ago. It was a gift. Well, no, wrong.
Yeah,
They
it's going
now
to be
you now
that those numbers get added back into the spend down.
right,
So,
right.
yeah.
So yeah, the spend down means I have $400,000 in my savings IRA, and in order to qualify to get to below the 2,000, I got to spend down that asset to get to 2,000, and people don't
But
want to do that.
but not spend it on their own or themselves. They have to spend it on long-term care. In other words,
Right,
spend
right,
down is money going to the long-term care facility,
right.
not to, "Oh, spend down, I'm gonna buy a boat for my kids." That doesn't count as spend
Right. Right, right. I guess I lost it at the casino. So yeah, I think what people need to understand is that 5-year look back is pretty universal across the country. You
Yeah.
want to start doing this ahead of time, but a lot of people can't. A lot of people don't,
Right.
like your parents, right? Or your grandfather didn't do it. So now what? There are legal ways to still qualify and preserve the wealth. So I want to go through some of those, right? And there's some legal terms in here that you can go to a lawyer with and say, "Hey, tell me about this." So you're educated in here because it's not all out. You're not. It's not completely out the window. You still have some time. So you got the spend down, and again, a little caveat: don't give large gifts during the look back period because it'll trigger penalties. So, you're not
Right.
fooling anyone.
Right.
I had what my wife's grandmother died years ago, at least probably 12 years ago. And 5 years ago, my wife's mother got a letter from the state of Massachusetts, the Commonwealth, saying, "Hey, we were looking into some things and we see that she had some assets, whatever." We're talking 7 years later here, after she's dead. They were still sniffing around. So, you think you're going to get
That's
away with
crazy.
something, but
Yeah.
you're better off planning in advance. But let's say you're not, right? Medicaid asset protection trusts. All right. Talk to the lawyers about this. I've seen this. So I'll give you an example. I had a couple, and they had about $6,000 of income, and the wife needed long-term care. She was getting dementia, and so they were like, "Well, we're above the limit, right? She's above the limit. What do we do? We have too much income." Now, even if they had the assets taken care of, which is a separate issue, they could create a a qualified income trust, which allows them to take the excess income and put it in a trust situation where it's legally designed to not be countable toward that income for the Medicaid program. So they'll do their calculation, but if you have the income, which is excessive, coming through a qualified income trust, you could still qualify. So just because your income is above it doesn't mean that you're out. You could still use some legal tools to get there. And so
Yeah.
I've seen it done, and
Yeah. If
it
the
works.
timing is right, you can use certain types of trusts, like irrevocable trust, Medicaid asset
Right.
protection trusts, as they're called.
Right.
But you need to be working with a really good, trustworthy
Yes.
elder care
Yes.
attorney in your state
Yes.
that
Yes. And
specializes
I've
in your
yes.
state. Yeah.
Yeah, you want to work with an elder care attorney that understands these because I have, and I've worked with these lawyers who has done it, and it's worked wonders for my clients. And if I feel good about it because we protected some of these assets, and you can't do it when they're there. You got to do it before you go in, right? You can't. It's got to. You have to have some forethought into this. Obviously, 5 years or more would be great, but in the case you can't, you could still do these trusts right away, even right beforehand. You're just repositioning the assets correctly in a legal way, right? Let me give you another story, Tony, because I think people don't realize IRAs, 401ks. I can't gift that and get rid of that. I can't move my IRA into a trust. It's got to stay as an individual retirement account. I can't just give it away because then I got to pay tax on it. Right.
Right.
So what do I do? So I had a client whose husband also dementia, healthy, but mind going, needed long term care and very young. And they had all their money in an IRA in his name. And so the Medicaid's looking at it saying, no, you can't qualify. You got $1 million in an IRA. And the wife who's healthy is saying, well, yeah, but that's for me and him. Like that's like I still have another 40 years potentially of life. That $1 million is I don't have a pension. This is it. I don't want to,
Right.
give it all away. And then what? Then you have two destitute people. So in Florida, what we did, working with an attorney now, and me, we combined forces and we created an income plan for the IRA. So we turned it into a distribution phase using kind of like an RMD. You know how required minimum distributions, you use a lifespan and you calculate how much you got to take out every year? You could create a required minimum distribution based on a different lifespan if you have a shortened lifespan and you're not yet 73 or 5 when RMD's kicking in. You
Well,
could
sure.
speed that up. You could be 45 and create an RMD plan for your IRA. And by doing that
Well, that's
in
what you do
Florida,
for people. That's an retirement income plan, right?
right? Normally it's just, I need something to live. But in this
Sure.
case, it was, we need to create one for someone that has a shortened lifespan due to a dementia.
Sure.
And by doing it, we also protected that asset, because once you start creating an income stream from this and it's legal, you do it with proper formulas, it no longer counts as an asset for Medicaid. So that $1
Really?
million IRA
Really?
was no longer considered, and they were able to qualify him for long-term care costs through the state Medicaid program, yet still having this IRA, because just the income was counted, not the overall asset.
Ah, the $2,000 a month income limit or whatever,
Whatever the income
2,300.
was,
Ah,
and
so it's
granted that income
income,
had to
not
go.
a lump asset, it's an income.
Right. So they were able to get the difference and get some state aid. The income had to go toward that. But part of it also was going to help the spouse. You could create I forget the technical term for it, but you can protect the spouse that's not in, because they separate them. Like when your mom went in, your dad wasn't considered. His income wasn't considered. It was just your mom's income. But your mom could have given your dad a stipend to live, to take care of the house, to take care of themselves. That
Mhm.
comes off. So
Yeah,
there's ways that you can protect, show lower income and protect assets and still qualify. And people don't, they think, oh, I make more than 2,900 a month, I'm out. Not necessarily. Oh, I have $1 million IRA, I'm out. No, you're the exact person that this is designed for, that
sure.
these legal tools are designed for. You could still qualify using that. So people don't realize that the distributions of a payout status of an IRA or 401k in Florida doesn't count toward the asset base of $2,000.
Right.
Okay. Very important. I found that extremely helpful for my client.
That's huge.
So
Yeah, I did not
yeah,
know that, that you could, instead of getting the state to view it as a lump sum, uh, if it's turn it into a monthly income, and if it meets the income thresholds, if it's below the income thresholds, then they would qualify for Medicaid. That's amazing. That's great.
right. It's huge. Let me go through one more key point that I often tell people to consider. And this is for the people that aren't in a nursing home yet, that are pre-planning,
Mhm.
and that they're not sure if they have enough to self-fund. And let's put a number on it, Tony, because I don't know there's no magic number, right? But I'm thinking, if you have, let's just say $3 million or more, you should be able to generate enough income between that and Social Security to self-fund for yourself. You should be able to pay a $10,000 a month bill to go into a nursing facility if you got 5 million. But if you have 2 million or 500,000, you're gonna run out,
Even a million, it's gonna be
right?
tough
A million,
because
it's even
my
2 million
mom's
maybe.
is closer to my mom's is over 11,000 a month. I know some places are 12,000 a month. My dad is currently at like 7,900 a month, because he needs a few
Right.
fewer things than my mom right now. But it ranges. It's gonna start at around 5 and go all the way up to 12 or 13 a month.
Right. And maybe you get 2 from Social Security, maybe you have a small pension, but you might be on the hook for 10 grand a month.
Yeah,
And so if you have 2 million, 5%, you can maybe pull it off, right?
yeah,
But less than that, it's like, geez, I may not have enough.
right.
Granted, the long-term care stay average is less than 3 years, but your
Plus
mom's a prime example. You could go longer.
Plus, here's my question right there. I think this is a point well worth noting for our listeners and viewers. And this is what I've learned. This is something to look at. When you talk about self-funding, I don't care if you're looking at, you have $1 million, 2 million, 3 million. Okay, I have 3 million or more. I can self-fund. But do you want to? I mean, I'm not telling people to try to take advantage, but I'm saying, did you intend any money to be left over for your kids or grandkids or your family? If you
Yeah.
did, now is the time to get some of that in a trust. If you, especially if you think, man, I've got dementia in the family, or,
Yes.
the statistics now, if you're, if you live past 75, you're probably going to end up, if you live past 65, there's a good chance you'll need long-term care. And the older you get, that chance increases and people are living longer. So what I would do if I had that kind of money, I would actually put some of it in a trust, or get it into my kids' names before. So if 5 years from now I start having dementia, I go into long-term care, state can't touch it. I could live off the state. I can do a spend down on what I had saved left for me. And then my kids still get some of that money rather than all the money going to the long-term care facility. I think I see family farms being lost to long-term care, small businesses. If your family owns a company, that can go. If you have assets, you worked 50, 60 years to build up this, to try to leave a legacy for your family and create longevity throughout your family. That's all going to go by the wayside if you and your wife end up in long-term care and have to do that spend down. Why give it to the long-term care facility when you can do a spend down, have Medicaid? Make sure what you want to pass along is getting passed along, right?
Yes. Yes. It's protecting the legacy portion, or for your
Yeah.
spouse, right? You don't want to
Yeah.
spend down all your assets and leave the
Right.
spouse destitute. And so it does take some pre-planning. And now, granted, if you go on Medicaid, you don't have a choice as to where you're going. There's certain facilities. So there's always, no one wants to go into a facility. So if you're going to go, wouldn't you want it to be the one of your choice? So it's always better to plan for this and intend to use your own money. But I have a solution for you, for your situation, Tony, you're just describing is, I do have some assets and I don't want it to all go to the nursing home. What can I do to leverage that?
Yeah.
And regarding the family farm, one of the things that destroyed family farms in the United States was a death and the
Yes.
taxes due, right? So the easy, not easy, but a solution to that was you buy a life insurance policy, not because the death benefit's going to go for the legacy. The death benefit's going to be used to pay the taxes to
Right.
keep the family farm, right? You
Right.
could do the same for long-term care. And
Oh,
so the hybrid life long-term care is an option that I think is very relevant to the people in that sweet spot that they have enough, but not sure if they do, but they certainly don't have anywhere near the low amount that will qualify them for Medicaid. They don't want to go down the spend down route. They want to keep it for themselves because you just never know. And they want to leave it to the kids if it's available. So, what you could do is you can leverage your assets by taking a portion of it and applying it to a life/long-term care hybrid policy. And
sure.
we've done shows on this, Tony, before, but this is where it really gets interesting is, let's imagine a world where you have 2 million and you're like, you know what, I don't think I have enough to go for long-term care. But I kind of want to have something left for the kids besides my house. So what if you took a portion of it, let's just say 200,000 or 500,000, and you said, I want that to be earmarked for long-term care if I need it. Now, if I don't need it, I want that. I want to give it to my kids. But if I need it, I want that 500,000 to get me the long-term care facility of my choice. 500,000 isn't that much, but it's a good chunk, right?
Yeah.
For a long-term care. It's not going to be indefinite. But if you leverage it and say, I want a life insurance policy, that 500,000, and I'm making up numbers now, it's depending on your age, but let's say that 500,000 buys you a $750,000 death benefit. So now you've given the 500,000, allocated it for long-term care. If you don't use it and you die, 750 goes to your kids. All right, I don't mind that. Is there a better way? Can I invest it and make more? Probably. But at the same time, let's say that 500,000 is now 750 or $1 million of long-term care spending. So if you need long-term care, you can use that asset and it becomes leveraged. Your 500,000 and now buys $1 million worth of long-term care that you can use to go to the facility of your choice,
Sure.
keeping your other assets away. And you're not going to qualify for Medicaid using this because the life insurance has a cash value that they could still consider countable, but it's an option. to leverage your assets. So you're saying this pool of money is for long-term care. Now it's leveraged, so it's even more, and the rest I can invest and leave to the kids.
Yeah.
And here's another little trick. You can also do this without building cash value. So, Tony, let's say you buy a life insurance policy with a long-term care rider on it. And we did a show on how you might be able to use your IRA, 401k money for that. You could take a
Yep.
distribution before 59 and a half. Remember that show? Um, let's say you're spending $1,000 a month for a big life insurance policy for long-term care, but it's not building up cash value. It's got a huge death benefit. It's got a huge long-term care benefit, but the cash value is not there because you're just basically paying every month. That might be a really great way to qualify for Medicaid because they're looking at the cash value. Oh, it's zero? Yeah, but you could say, yeah, but I have $500,000 worth of long-term care benefit if I want it. The state will look at that and they can't force you to take the 500,000 and use it. It's there if you want it, but the state can't force it because it's a voluntary benefit. You could keep it, pass that on to the kids, or if you get in a pinch, you can use it for long-term care to pay for the facility.
Sure. Wow. It's another good strategy.
Yeah, there's options out there, Tony. The bottom line is if you're thinking about keeping your assets and protecting it from long-term care facility or home health, I mean, you can use these policies or you can get Medicaid to help come to you to help with home health care. It's not like you have to go to a facility. There are ways to protect your assets and do that. It's just you have to think ahead. But if you're up against it, get the lawyer. It's not all lost. There's some options you can do. The qualified income trust, the Medicaid asset protection trust, using Medicaid friendly annuities. There are options, but I'd rather you plan ahead, have the conversation with your spouse, have the conversation with your parents, like you tried to do, Tony, and push.
Yeah.
Because it's easier to plan ahead and deal with it than it is to scramble and try and hide assets. It's so much easier to plan ahead,
Exactly.
and it's worth it. It's worth it. Not to mention, Tony, just by doing the estate planning stuff ahead of time, you're preventing probate.
Yeah.
Just keep in mind these are two different times. You can't just get I have a revocable trust with my house and I'm fine. No, that's not. Revocable trust is not what we're talking about here. We're talking about Medicaid, irrevocable, very specific Medicaid friendly trust.
Just a trust isn't going to do it. Yeah.
Right. Just because I have my house in a trust, no, you're not protected. This is a separate type of protection. So hopefully you got something from this, listener. Don't lose hope. Tony is still positive, right? I mean, Tony, you're happy. You're going through a nightmare, really. By any sense of the word, it's a nightmare for you.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry you're going through it. And yeah, you could have done things differently. Your family could have done things differently, but maybe the person listening to this will learn from that.
Yeah. Well, and my wife and I have learned from that, and our kids. I mean, we've really communicated, here's what my mom and dad did not do these things right. Here's where mistakes were made. It's very clear. And anything I can do to help anyone else from making these mistakes, it's just like, keep in mind that 5-year look back, work with somebody like Dan Wendol, a trusted financial professional, and have Dan recommend a good elder care attorney in the state of Florida or whatever state you're in. That is huge. That'll help you and plan ahead. The sooner you do it and the better you communicate with all parties involved, the more communication you do with your adult children. If it's you're trying to protect your legacy, it's huge. And I don't care if you have $250,000 or $5 million, you got to plan ahead for this.
Absolutely. Have the conversation now. Call your financial advisor and say, let's talk about this stuff. If they're not willing to talk about it, then get the elder law attorney. Or this is table stakes now. You have to do it. And 500,000 is not what it used to be. This isn't only for the rich. This is for everybody. Just get your legal house in order. It just makes everything so much easier, and it protects you financially. They go hand in hand. They're not separate issues. This is critical. So, Tony, thanks for another good show, and hopefully we'll have some good news going forward with you. I'm hoping all the best for you and your parents. We'll catch everyone next week.